Hello all, welcome to Narayana IAS Academy. This is Sureka Bhaskar presenting to you the daily news analysis. In today's discussion, we've taken up a number of topics from The Hindu and the Indian Express which are important for the UPSC examination. So let us have a look at the topics. So first one, we'll be discussing about the UNFA Peace Accord. That is one of the factions of the insurgent group, that is United Liberation Front of Assam, has signed a tripartite peace pact with the central government and the state government of Assam. Moving ahead, we will look into a rift over relief where the Tamil Nadu government has been seeking funds from the central government and has been wanting to declare the natural calamity of the Michong as national disaster. Moving on, we look at Trump blocked from Republican presidential primary. However, this news is not important for the examination. We look at the differences in the impeachment procedure of the president in the United States versus the impeachment procedure in India. Following that, we'll be discussing India closing in on a lithium deal where the Indian government has been signing the draft agreements with the Argentinian government for exploration of lithium blocks. And the final news for the day will be Argentina declining the official invitation to join the BRICS grouping. The first article for the day is UNFA Peace Accord History of its 44-year-long insurgency peace talks. So this particular article talks about one of the factions of the insurgent group, UNFA, that is the United Liberation Front of Assam, signing a tripartite peace agreement with the union government and the state government of Assam. So this particular topic becomes important from GS paper 3, role of non-state actors in creating challenges to internal security. And we'll be discussing about the northeastern insurgency and its increasing vulnerability to the insurgencies in recent days. And also we will look into the internal security aspect from this article. So moving ahead, we have a previous year question that has been asked in 2017 mains that talks about the increasing infestation of insurgency in the Northeast region. So the Northeast region and the increasing insurgency and the vulnerability of the region becomes important. So the news is one of the factions, that is the pro-talks faction of the United Liberation Front of Assam, that is the UNFA, has signed a historic tripartite peace deal. What is tripartite? It is actually signed between three parties. One is the UNFA, with that of the union government and the state government of Assam. So now, before moving into the topic, let us understand about the emergence of Assam as a state. So here I will break this emergence or the chronology into 4 different parts. One is the early kingdoms. Next, this becomes 4th to the 13th century. Next is the medieval era, which is the 13th to the 18th century. Next will be a colonial era, 18th to 1947 till independence. And the final one is post-independence scenario, that is post-1947. So moving into the early kingdom first. Now starting with the early kingdoms. In the 4th century BC, the Assam kingdom starts with the establishment of Pushyavarman dynasty, and the kingdom was Kamarupa kingdom, followed by which in the 7th century we had the reign of Bhaskara Varman, under which the Assam kingdom reached the zenith of its glory in terms of art, architecture and cultural exchange. Later, during the 12th to the 13th century, the Kamarupa kingdom declined due to internal conflicts and external invasions. So the early kingdom, that is from the 4th to the 13th century, it was characterized by the establishment of the Pushyavarman dynasty and the Kamarupa kingdom, under which the kingdom actually was stronger, and under Bhaskara Varman, the Ahom kingdom, that is this entire region of Assam, which included the current states of Meghalaya, Manipur, Arunachal Pradesh, reached the zenith of its glory in terms of art, architecture, as well as cultural exchange, and it deteriorated or declined in its power eventually due to internal conflicts towards the end of the 12th century. Now moving on to the medieval era. So medieval era, that is 13th to the 16th century, saw the rise of Ahom kingdom as one of the strongest kingdoms which resisted the Mughal expansion, and during the 16th to the 18th century, the Mughal Empire served as one of the major threats to the Ahom kingdom. However, the Ahom kingdom retained its independence. So this was the period when there was advancements in administration, trade, and culture. Now let's move into the colonial era. This is basically from the 18th century till 1947, till India became independent. Here, in 1826, Assam was annexed by the British East India Company. And this marked the beginning of the British colonial rule. Following this, 19th century, the tea plantations were established. So basically what happened is the insurgency, one of the reasons for the insurgency is this particular Assam region was rich in oil, tea, as well as coal. So this invited or attracted a lot of migrants into the region, and there was competition for the resources which actually skyrocketed, thereby leading to demographic shifts as well as a lot of insurgency and insecurities among the indigenous people. Following this, in 1911, Assam was separated from Bengal and established as a chief commissionership. Now let us look into the post-independence phase. This is 1947 till current date, okay? So, in 1947, Assam actually has become a part of independent India. So, part of independent India, and in the 1950s to 70s, there were formation of new states such as Meghalaya, Nagaland, Arunachal Pradesh, and Mizoram. And following this, the 21st century, there were a lot of economic developments and there were armed rebellions against the government for a sovereign Assam nation, which still continued, following which the 2023 peace pact was signed between one of the factions and the governments. So moving on, let us look at the story of the formation or the emergence of UNFA, how it transcended from an insurgent group and what led to the signing of peace pact with the government. So insurgency to the peace process. So if we look into this particular infographic, so late 19th century, I told you that Assam was a rich region in terms of resources, not only the tea plantation, but also due to its oil and coal resources, which attracted a number of migrants. So this essentially led to a lot of insecurity among the indigenous people, and there was a cultural dilution and a shift in the demographic. So following this, there was partition of India in 1947, and post this, there were a lot of exodus of refugees from the erstwhile East Pakistan, that is currently Bangladesh, and this led to more insecurity among the people. So due to this insecurity, due to the exodus of refugees and the changing demography, what happened was 1979 saw the formation of UNFA by many of the radical thinkers, and some of them include Aravind Rajkova and Anup Chetia, etc. And the objective of this particular organization was to establish a sovereign Assamese nation through armed struggle and armed rebellion against the center. And period of 1979 to 2005 was a period of bloodshed because there was a lot of kidnappings, extortions, there were persecutions as well as assassinations in demand for a sovereign Assamese nation. Also, in retaliation to this, the government took a number of measures like Operation Bajrang in 1990, and it imposed AFSPA, that is the Armed Force Special Protection Act, in order to suppress the ULFA, and also there was imposition of the president's rule in the region, and Assam was declared as the disturbed region. Following this retaliation by the government, what happened was there was lot of internal divisions and secret killing among or inside these ULFA groups, and there were a lot of external links, that is setting up of camps in Myanmar and Bangladesh, and also inclination towards Islamic groups, towards Islamic terror groups like the ISIS, etc. After that, post 2005, there were consultative groups that were formed in order to reach a peace pact with the union government and the state government of Assam. That is, ULFA had formed a consultative group for peace talks in 2005. In 2012, there was a major split where Rajkowa's pro-talks faction actually started negotiating with the government, which finally led to the 2023 historic peace agreement after a long 44 years of insurgency. Moving ahead, now let us understand the Northeast region, the strategic importance of this region, as well as the increasing vulnerability of this region to increasing insurgency. So now let us look into the major causes of insurgency in Northeast India. The first one is the colonial neglect. That is, if we look at the pre-British and the British policies and any kind of law, it isolated the Northeast region from the mainland India. So if you see, pre-British and the British policies always fostered isolation and alienation to the northeastern part of India, excluding them from the mainland India. The second one is the constitutional ambiguities. That is, the region, that is the Assam region, witnessing many of the autonomous districts and the other regions getting their autonomy as well as, freedom and a free hand from the government. What did they do? It actually led to conflicting tribal claims for an autonomous region. Following this, we have a lot of socio-economic factors. The first is the multi-ethnic complexity. That is, this particular region is characterized by diverse ethnic composition with over 200 tribal groups, which leads to rivalries of who is superior to the other. The second one is the economic disparity. That is, there are a lot of lack of opportunities and the policies have been ineffective that create frustration among the people. The third one is underdevelopment. There have been a lot of infrastructural delays that has breeded resentment among the people of this region. Moving on, we have other reasons like the geographical alienation that I actually told you that they were already not included and not considered as a part of mainland India. There were distinct differences that contributed to a sense of separateness of the Northeast region. And the last one is the territorial disputes. You have a lot of interstate and international border disputes like between Assam and Nagaland and Meghalaya. This is further complicating the situation. Moving ahead, let's look at few of the government efforts for the peace in the Northeast region. The first one is the Karbi-Anglong Agreement of 2021. So this is nothing but a tripartite agreement among insurgent groups of Assam, the center and the state government. Then we have the Bodo Accord. It was signed between the central government and the Assam government as well as the Bodo groups. Bodo is nothing but a tribe who actually live there. Next is the Bru-Riang Agreement of 2020. This was signed between 4 parties, that was the central government, the government of Mizoram, Tripura, and the leaders of the Bru organization. Following this, we have the NLFT Tripura Agreement, which actually involved a surrender of a number of insurgents with weapons from the NLFT, which was a group banned by the government under the Unlawful Activities Prevention Act, that is the UAPA. Moving on to the other initiatives for the development and integration of the Northeast region, let's look into it. The first one is the establishment of the Ministry of Development of the Northeastern region, which aims at the development of initiatives of the Northeastern region. Next one, the government had come up with the concept of ILP, that is the Inner Line Permit, which restricts the Indian citizens from settling in certain parts of the Northeast region. The ILP is nothing but the document for Indian citizens to visit or reside in the select states of the Northeastern region. And currently, the states with ILP include Arunachal Pradesh, Nagaland, and Mizoram. Next one is the Armed Forces Special Powers Act, that is the AFSPA of 1958. This is used to manage the insurgency in several northeastern states. Moving on to the provisions of Article 244 and 6th Schedule of the Constitution, it enables the establishments of autonomous district council with the legislative, judicial and administrative autonomy in different states of Assam, Meghalaya, Tripura and Mizoram. The next one is Act East policy. India's Act East policy actually creates a lot of transformative impact on the northeastern region, which will boost the economic cooperation, cultural ties, and strategic relations with Asia Pacific. Moving on, the final one is the PM Divine Scheme, that is the Prime Minister's Development Initiative for the northeastern region, which supports infrastructural development, social development, and the livelihood projects. Moving ahead, now let us look at the improved security situation in the region. So compared to 2014, there has been a 76% reduction in the insurgency incidents and 90% reduction in the security forces casualties and also civilian deaths in 2022. Also, due to a significant improvement in security, what has happened is AFSPA has been removed from certain parts of Assam, Manipur and Arunachal Pradesh. Also, states of Tripura and Meghalaya had AFSPA removed completely in 2015 and 2018 respectively. So now let us look at the way forward in order to limit the insurgency and what are the provisions for the government that can be taken. So the insurgency in northeastern India demands a multifaceted approach, and this requires political settlements with different tribal groups, balancing regional autonomy with national unity, fostering economic development, preserving the cultural identity, and enhancing security measures. Also, effective communication, inclusion of stakeholders. So, if we actually follow these principles of political settlements with different groups, balancing the regional autonomy alongside the national unity, fostering economic development like India's Act East policy as we saw, and preserving the cultural identity of different ethnic groups there, enhancing the security measures, and effective communication with the involved stakeholders will definitely result in the holistic development of the region and also bring down the insurgency incidences in the future. The next article that we'll be discussing about is Rift over Relief. So in this article, we'll be discussing about Tamil Nadu government seeking the fund allocation from the center and also seeking its approval for declaring the natural calamity of Michong as a national disaster. So over here, we'll be discussing about what is a disaster, what is SDRF, that is the State Disaster Response Fund, and the National Disaster Response Fund, as well as the Sendai framework. So this particular topic becomes important from Maine's GS paper 3, Environment, Disaster and Disaster Management. So there has been previous year's questions in 2020 and 2016 regarding the urban floods, which we have actually discussed in one of our daily news analysis, and also about the smart cities of Hyderabad and Pune flooding. So this topic becomes important. Anything related to climate change and associated disasters is important for the examination. So moving ahead, the state of Tamil Nadu has actually wanting Michong to be declared as a national calamity and has sought certain amounts of funds from the center to tide over the situation. So now let us understand what is a disaster. According to the Disaster Management Act of 2005, a disaster is nothing but it is a catastrophe which is either natural or man-made or by any kind of accident or negligence that results in substantial loss of life or human suffering and destruction to property. So this is what is the definition of a disaster according to the Disaster Management Act. Moving forward, let us look at the different types of disasters. The disasters can be classified into two types, the natural disasters and the man-made disasters. The natural disasters and the man-made disasters. The natural disasters are classified as major disasters such as flood, cyclone, drought, earthquake, and minor disasters include cold wave, heat waves, mudslides, thunderstorms, etc. Over here, under the man-made disasters, the major ones include the setting of fires, deforestation, wars, any kind of chemical pollution. All these are major disasters. And the minor disasters are industrial disasters, environmental pollution, food poisoning, etc. So moving forward, let us look into the concept of national disaster and if India actually has any provisions for national disasters under its legal framework. There is no provision, executive or legal, to declare a natural calamity as a national calamity. So first, let's look into the current guidelines of the State Disaster Response Fund, whether they have the provision, and the National Disaster Response Fund, what they have to say. The existing guidelines of SDRF or NDRF do not contemplate declaring a disaster as a national calamity. Moreover, the central government does not declare any natural disaster as a national disaster unless and until a situation calls for, such as the 2013 floods of Uttarakhand and the 2018 floods of Kerala. So when a disaster of such a kind, of such severity is classified as of severe nature, then it qualifies for any kind of additional financial assistance from the NDRF, that is the National Disaster Response Fund. Moving ahead, what does this fund aim at? It specifically is designed to provide supplementary aid to the states in order to help them with the consequences of such a catastrophe. Moving ahead, were there any earlier attempts in order to call a particular natural calamity as a national disaster? Let us see. The first one, the National Committee on Disaster Management, it actually met to determine the parameters for defining a national calamity. However, there was nothing established as a fixed criteria as such. Following this, we had the 10th Finance Commission's proposal, which said to define a national calamity of rare severity as a disaster affecting 1/3 of state's population. However, even this proposal did not solidify to become a clear definition. Instead, it was suggested that each calamity should be assessed on case-to-case basis, considering various factors like the intensity, magnitude, and the required level of assistance, and what is the coping up mechanism or the adaptation mechanism that the state can actually provide. Moving ahead, let us see the cyclone-prone states, that is, what are the way forward in order to handle the sudden catastrophes like Cyclone Michong and the disastrous impacts that it had on the ecosystem. The cyclone-prone states like Tamil Nadu, Andhra Pradesh, especially the coastal regions of Odisha, West Bengal, should be consulted in order to formulate a comprehensive and non-controversial disaster management plan. The next one is the Flexi Fund utilization. So, what is flexi fund utilization? The states must be allowed by the center to set aside a certain percentage of funds in order to be used for other sub-programs or sub-schemes which are aligned with the objectives of the funds. Okay. So, for example, if the state has actually given, if the center has given allotted states X percentage of fund, out of this 25% is actually kept as the flexi fund, which can be utilized in times of catastrophes. Moving ahead, the Sendai framework that acknowledges that while the primary responsibility for reducing disaster risk lies with the state, the duty is shared also with the other stakeholders, including the local government and the private sector. So now let us look into what is the provisions of the Sendai framework 2015 to 2030. It is nothing but it is a framework for disaster risk reduction, and it is an international agreement that aims to reduce the disaster risk and the losses. So here it was adopted by the UN member states in 2015. And it was a successor instrument to the Hyogo Framework Action 2005, which aimed to build the resilience of nations and communities to disasters. Now let us look at NDRF. This is nothing but it was constituted under the Disaster Management Act of 2005. It supplements the SDRF of a state in case the disaster is of a severe nature, provided that the states do not have adequate funds to meet the same. Now let's look at SDRF. The SDRF was constituted under the Disaster Management Act 2005. It is the primary fund that is available with the state governments for responses to disasters. Now, the central government contributes 75% of SDRF allocation for the general category states or the UTs and 90% for the special category states, which includes the northeastern states, Sikkim, Uttarakhand, Himachal Pradesh and Jammu and Kashmir. And SDRF shall be used only for meeting the expenditure for providing immediate relief to the victims. And now, what are the disasters covered under the SDRF? This comprises of a number of disasters like cyclone, drought, cloudburst, frost and cold waves. The next news that we will be discussing is about Trump blocked from Republican presidential primary in Maine. Though this particular news is not important for the examination, what is important for us to understand is the difference in the process of impeachment of the president in the United States versus the process followed in India. So this particular topic becomes relevant from GS paper 2, where you can map it to comparison of the Indian constitutional scheme with that of the other countries. So here, let us look into the process of impeachment of the US presidents versus the Indian president and the ground for impeachment. Moving ahead, we have a previous year question asked in 2022, where it reads, critically examine the procedures through which the presidents of India and France are elected. So here, the provisions of the Indian constitution and the provisions borrowed from the other constitutions become important for the examination. So let us get into the news. The former US President Donald Trump actually stood impeached in 2021, and following that, some Congress representatives are also under the active consideration of the impeachment and the removal of the President of the US, that is the current President of the United States, Joe Biden. So now let us look into what is impeachment. Impeachment is the formal process by which a public head, here the president, is accused of unlawful activity. So the impeachment is nothing but it is a formal process by which a public head, that is here the president, is accused of unlawful activity which can potentially lead to the impeachment and removal from his office. Impeachment is a formal process in which a public official is accused of unlawful activity which can potentially lead to the removal from his or her office. Impeachment, however, does not necessarily lead to the removal from the office. So here, it is important for us to understand the difference between the process of impeachment and the removal. So here, let us understand impeachment and removal. In the US, what happens is any member of the House of Representatives, that is synonymous with that of the Lok Sabha. See, it is important to understand that the Congress, what we mention as Congress in the US, is synonymous with the Indian Parliament, and what we refer to the House of Representatives in the US is synonymous with that of the Lok Sabha, and the Senate is synonymous with that of the Rajya Sabha. So here what happens is, if any of the member of the House of Representatives actually introduces a resolution accusing the president of unlawful activities, then that resolution is taken up by the House of Representatives, which is nothing but synonymous to that of the Rajya Sabha, which if gives a support of 51%, that is by simple majority, then it is taken up by trial by the Chief Justice of the United States, following by 2/3 majority of the members of the Senate, that is 67%, thereby rendering the office of the president removed. So, when the resolution is passed by the member and if it is taken up and it is given support by the members of the House of the Representatives, then the president is said to be impeached, whereas the final process by which the Senate gives its majority vote, that is 2/3 of the majority, then the president stands removed. So, let us move ahead. So, impeachment of the US president. Article 2, Section 4 of the United States Constitution speaks about the impeachment of the president. So here if you see, the president, the vice president and all civil officers of the United States shall be removed from the office on impeachment for the conviction of treason, bribery or other high crimes and misdemeanors. So here what does the word treason mean? It is any kind of criminal activity that causes harm to your country. Moving ahead, let us look into the process of impeachment of the President of the United States. So here, any member of the House of Representatives, this is nothing but synonymous with that of the Lok Sabha as I told you, can introduce a resolution of impeachment if in case they suspect that the President is guilty of treason, bribery or any other crimes or misdemeanors. So following this, the House of Representatives will consider the set of charges and in case they support it with a simple majority, that is with 51% of the support, then the president stands impeached. Following this, the trial actually begins. The trial is headed by the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, while the members of the House from the prosecution and the senators will act as a jury essentially. Following this, at the end of the trial, a Senate vote will actually be delivered and if at least it garners a support of around 67% of them and if they find the charges are actually valuable and if they find that the president is guilty, then he stands removed from the office of the president. Now let us compare this process of impeachment with that of the process of impeachment of the Indian president. So impeachment of the President of India. The president can be removed from the office by a process of impeachment for the violation of the constitution. However, the constitution does not define the term violation of the constitution. The process of impeachment of President of India, this provision was taken from the Constitution of the United States. And this is provided under Article 61 of the Constitution, which provides for the procedure of impeachment. Now let us look into the process of impeachment. The process actually starts from either house of the parliament, either the Lok Sabha or the Rajya Sabha. That is, it starts in either house of the parliament which presents the charge. And then a resolution is proposed and which requires a 14-day prior notice which is signed by at least 1/4 of the house's members and then it is passed by a 2/3 majority. Following this, the other house is responsible for the investigation of such charges during which the president has the right to be represented and to represent and be present. And finally, if the investigation leads to 2/3 majority of the resolution which confirms the charge, then finally the president actually stands removed from his office. Moving ahead, from this chart, you can actually see the comparison of the process of impeachment and the office of the president between that of the United States and India. First one is constitutional basis. Under the United States, it is provided under Article 2, Section 4 of the US Constitution, whereas it's Article 61 of the Indian Constitution. And grounds of impeachment are treason, bribery, or any other high crimes and misdemeanors, whereas in India, it is violation of the Constitution, whereas this phrase is not defined by the Constitution of India. Next one is the initiation process. It is initiated in the House of the Representatives, but here it is initiated in either House of the Parliament, either the Lok Sabha or the Rajya Sabha. And here the majority required is the simple majority in the House for impeachment charges, whereas here it is 2/3 of the total membership in the initiating House, whether it is the Lok Sabha or the Rajya Sabha. Next is the trial, which is conducted by the Senate, which finally passes the majority, that is 2/3 of the majority, 67% of its support. And here it is conducted by the other house, whichever is not initiating the process. The majority required here is 2/3 majority in the Senate, and here too it is the 2/3 majority of those present and voting. Finally, the consequences. The removal from the office and the disqualification from holding any kind of public office. Here it is the removal from the office. The next news that we will be discussing about is India closing in on lithium deal with Argentina, tapping Australia and Chile. This is nothing but it talks about the Indian government actually signing agreements with the Argentinian government for the exploration of the lithium blocks. So this particular topic is important from Maine's GS Paper 3, Science and Technology, Developments and their Applications and Effects in Everyday Life. And also here we'll be talking about lithium as an important metal and what are the global as well as Indian reserves. So moving ahead, we have a previous year question in 2020 where the question reads, consider the following minerals and the list of minerals are given, from which we have been asked to identify which of the mineral has been officially designated as major minerals. So here, major minerals, minor minerals, critical minerals, and rare earth minerals become important for the examination. Moving ahead. So the India's Mines Ministry through Kabul, this is nothing but Khanij Videsh Private Limited, has entered agreements for lithium exploration, a draft deal with the Argentinian miner for exploration or acquiring the lithium blocks. So now let us understand about lithium. So lithium is a soft, silvery white alkali metal. It is also called as the white gold because of its immense economic potential in the green energy transition. If you see its physical and chemical characteristics, physical include it is the lightest metal and a solid element, and it is highly reactive and flammable, and it is an alkali metal belonging to part of group 1 in the periodic table, which is characterized by single valence electrons. So you can see this. How is the extraction of lithium done? The first one is the brine extraction, which is nothing but evaporating the lithium-rich brines. What is brines? It is extremely concentrated salt water. So evaporating the lithium-rich brines found in the salt flats, example Chile's Atacama salt flat. The next is hard rock extraction, where mining and processing lithium-bearing minerals like podomine, example from Australia. What are the significance of this particular lithium metal? It is a rare metal. It is strategic because it is limited in reserve and it plays a crucial role in the high-tech industries. And now let us move on to the applications of lithium. It is used in making lithium-ion batteries, which powers the electric vehicles, laptops, smartphones, and other digital gadgets. Next is it is used for energy storage, it is used for electronics and communications, and it has various industrial applications like it is used in lubricants, greases, air conditioning, nuclear reactors, and other chemical production. Moving forward, now let us look at the global reserves and Indian areas where there are high reserves and concentration of lithium. So if we look at the global reserves and distribution, the first area is Chile. It is home to world's largest lithium mine, that is Atacama Salt Flat, which contributes to the substantial production of lithium, followed by Argentina, which possesses vast untapped reserves, particularly in the lithium triangle region, which offers future growth opportunities, followed by, if you see the top lithium reserves holders include Chile, Australia, Argentina, and China. And now let us look into this lithium triangle. It is a region that encompasses parts of Chile, Argentina, and Bolivia, which holds a significant portion of the global reserves. So if you look into this map, this triangular region, which encompasses Chile, Bolivia, and Argentina, is referred to as the lithium triangle, which consists of a significant portion of the global reserves of lithium. Now let us look into India's lithium reserves. India's journey with lithium is just the beginning, but we have certain recent discoveries which offer a lot of possibilities for India. The first area is Jammu and Kashmir, where the estimated reserves of lithium is around 5.9 million tons, followed by Rajasthan region, which is potentially meeting 80% of India's demand. Next is other areas include mica belts in Rajasthan, Bihar, and Andhra Pradesh. And we have the pegmatite belts in Odisha and Chhattisgarh and other areas of Gujarat, that is Rann of Kutch. Now let us look into few government initiatives which are aimed to boost the local production of lithium and which also aim to attract the foreign investments. The first one is Mission Critical Minerals. So streamlining this particular mission aims to streamline exploration and it offers incentives and auctioning resource blocks in order to boost the domestic supply and attract investments. Next one is Kabil, we already saw. It is a public-private partnership which combines the local financial muscle with foreign expertise which accelerates the exploration and the development of lithium blocks. The next, moving on, we have the policy reforms which actually opens the doors for private players, which simplifies the procedures and it prioritizes the environmental safeguards. Then we are moving towards the global collaboration where we learn from the lithium-rich nations like Chile and Argentina, and we are co-developing our innovative technologies with that of those countries, and we are diversifying our import sources for long-term stability. The next news that we'll be discussing will be Xavier Milei, that is Argentinian president, has rejected the formal invitation to join the BRICS grouping. So here, BRICS actually become important from international relations perspective, that is GS paper 2, where regional and other international grouping become important. So there has been a previous year question in 2016 asked about the new development bank and its headquarters. So this actually becomes important for the examination. So let's get into the news. The newly elected Argentinian president had formally declined an invitation to join the BRICS grouping. So let us directly jump into this grouping, its origin and mission objectives and its vision. So BRICS actually stands for Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. It was originally coined, that is the term BRIC was originally coined in 2001 by Jim O'Neill, who was a renowned economist. And this particular grouping started its foreign ministers meeting in 2006, and in 2010 it actually became a BRICS after inclusion of South Africa. Now the objective of BRICS include promoting economic growth, addressing different global challenges, and it aims to reform the international financial institutions like the World Bank and the IMF in order to better represent the interests of the emerging economies. Moving ahead, let's look at the significance of the grouping. So if you see the socio-political and economic significance, the grouping, that is, the countries which are a part of this grouping, they comprise 41% of the world's population, and it comprises of 24% of the GDP and 16% of the world trade. And if you look in terms of trade and investment, it facilitates trade and investment among its members, thereby fostering economic cooperation and mutual development. Moving forward, if you look at the global governance reform, the BRICS as an organization, it advocates for more inclusive global governance structure. As I told you, it aims to reform the institutions like the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank. So expansion and partnership, as you know, that BRICS had expanded by admitting 6 new members, of which Argentina was also one of the members, the others including Ethiopia, Iran, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, etc. So their full membership will be effective from Jan 1, 2024. Now, what are the challenges and criticisms about this organization? The first is diverse priorities. Also, it comprises of the countries having 40% of the population and 24% of GDP and 16% of the world trade. They have diverse priorities and geopolitical interests. For example, Argentina had pulled out of the invitation because of concerns over its alignment with the communist nations like China. Moreover, the effectiveness. Critics actually say that BRICS face a lot of challenge in achieving its stated objectives because there is a lot of policy coordination issues and institutional reforms. Now moving on, the future prospects of this particular organization. So in the evolving dynamics and in the evolving geopolitical scenario, BRICS will continue to adapt to new challenges as it has a lot of emerging economies like India and South Africa. Also, there are a lot of cooperation initiatives that have been taken up by the organization. Like one of the initiatives is a new development bank. This demonstrates the commitment of the organization to collaborative projects aimed at sustainable development. Now let us solve certain prelims and mains practice questions. The first one is consider the following statements. Article 61 of the Indian Constitution speaks about the impeachment of the president. Yes, this is correct. The grounds of impeachment for the Indian president is clearly defined in the Constitution. No, this is wrong. It is not defined. No presidents have been impeached in USA so far. This is wrong, as we saw the former President Donald Trump stood impeached in 2021. So going by the options, the answer will be A, only one. The next question, consider the following statements. It talks about BRICS. The first summit of the BRICS was held in Russia in 2009. This is correct. And recently, Ethiopia rejected the invitation for full membership. This is wrong, as this is Argentina. So going by the options, which of the statements given above is or are correct? Since only one is correct, the answer will be A. The third question is consider the following statements about lithium. Lithium is a soft, silvery white alkali metal. This is correct. It is the lightest metal and solid element known. This is also correct. Lithium is a non-reactive and non-flammable. This is wrong, as it is highly inflammable. So how many of the above given statements are correct? Since only 2 statements are correct, the options will be answer B, only 2. Moving on, the fourth question talks about the State Disaster Response Fund, that is the SDRF. The SDRF shall be used only for meeting the expenditure for providing immediate relief to the victims. Yes, this is correct. Disasters like drought, fire, hailstorms, etc. are covered under SDRF. This is also correct. So the question is, which of the statements given above is or are correct? So going by the options, the answer will be C. Moving on to the mains practice question, the question reads, discuss the evolution of UNFA insurgency in Assam and its transition to the peace process. Also, analyze the broader implications of the insurgency in Northeast India and the measures taken by the government to address these challenges. So first, we will actually start the answer with an introduction by briefly introducing the UNFA insurgent group in Assam and its recent transition to the peace talks. And in the body, we will talk about its 44 years of insurgency, its formation, and the Assam Accord being signed in 1985. And also, we'll talk about the northeastern region and its increasing vulnerability and the reasons for the vulnerability, like the historical neglect, the constitutional ambiguities, the socio-economic disparities, the ethnic complexities, the geographical alienation, as well as external support as the reasons. Next, we'll discuss about the government measures like the political settlements between the various groups and initiatives like the Act East policy for the economic and the holistic development of the region. Moving ahead, in conclusion, we will summarize the importance of addressing these complex challenges for sustainable peace and development of the region. So that's all for the daily news analysis. On behalf of the Narayana IAS Academy, I wish you a very happy and a prosperous new year ahead. For regular updates, please do like, share and subscribe to Narayana IAS YouTube channel.